Augusta. I'm Peggy's daughter, but I'm also here because what I do for a living is I help companies become more innovative, which means essentially I help people change. And I think that all of you are here probably because you have some interest in change. So I want to start off just off the bat, find one of these notepads that's lying around, and write down for yourself a short list of the things you want to change, the kind of things that brought you here to bugger you today. Don't think about it too much. Just take a minute and start jotting down a list, and we'll use it later in the session. So put that aside, listen to me for a few minutes. We'll come back to it in a couple minutes. But like I said, what I do is I help companies innovate. I work for a consultancy called Continuum, and we work with big corporations, big entities, to help them think about the future. So we help companies invent the new, we help them pivot into new places, we help them shed what they've always been about and think about what they can be about in the future. So we've done things like we invented the Swiffer for Procter & Gamble. I've been working a lot recently with the nation's largest health insurance company through a time, as you know, that obviously requires a lot of change from a company like that. I'm doing a couple of projects right now with the World Bank, helping them think about financial inclusion for some of the poorest people in the world. So essentially, my role, my professional role, is helping individuals within these companies to develop the mindsets and the behaviors to be able to make these kinds of changes. So this is an experiment today that my mom forced upon me, which is essentially thinking about how can we borrow some of the tactics and the experiences from the corporate innovation world and apply them to personal innovation. So I think it's worth starting by thinking about the definition for innovation, because I think it's a little bit of a buzzword these days. You know, it's on the cover of magazines probably every month. Companies are appointing chief innovation officers and building innovation teams. Like, everybody wants to be innovative, and yet I don't think that everybody is innovative. I think that a more accurate definition of innovation is this combination of change and risk. And change, thinking about that which is disruptive, that which moves beyond the incremental. And so often our clients come to us and say, we want to disrupt our category, we want to disrupt our market. And the uncomfortable truth is that most often companies are able to disrupt the market because it is disruptive to themselves to get to that place. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. The other piece of that is around risk. You know, if it wasn't a risky business, everybody would be doing it. If it wasn't hard to do, there would be a lot more iPods out there in the world. And innovation is hard work. I get paid for it because it's a real job. It requires real, kind of blood, sweat, and tears and angst to do this work. But I think the rewards are enormous. So that's what I want to share with you today. The first thing I want to talk about is the experience of innovation. And let's see, I made notes for you guys. The first piece of the experience is that it's scary. I get clients call me on the phone at basically the same part of the process of every project. And now I call it the freak out call. It's so common that I've written a pamphlet about it, so I can just hand it to my client when it happens. But the essence of every one of those calls is we've gone down this path with you. We've paid you a lot of money, by the way, and we don't know where we're going. We're really uncertain about where this process is going to lead us. Because the nature of innovation is that we need to hold open the space for creation. We need to hold open the space for new possibilities. We don't know the answer, certainly, but we also don't even know what form that answer is going to take. Is it going to be an animal or a mineral or a vegetable? Part of innovation is creating that level of uncertainty for ourselves. It's also a process that's not steady. It's not a every day I accomplish X, Y, and Z and I move along this steady path. It's much bumpier than that. It's fits and spurts. it's about learning a lot and thinking very deeply before you get those aha moments and those insights that are going to kind of propel you along. And so that brings a level of uncertainty to clients who are used to kind of steady, ongoing movement. And it can be a process that invites doubt in itself. I think when I get those calls from my clients, I say inevitably we have to have faith in the process, because for 30 years it has taken us to where we need to go. The reality is that I have a team in the other room who's also freaked out, because every time you go through the process, you are a little bit uncertain of whether you're going to find the big answer. So it's scary, and that's okay. That's my first comment to you. The second one is that it's really a new way of being. It's about letting the outside be your guide in new ways. And I think this is hard for people because we all have established heuristics. We all have our known ways of getting stuff done. I think probably everyone in this room is pretty self-reliant and is pretty good at business as usual. And that's wonderful. That's what allows you to be a functional human being. But that's not what we're talking about here today. What we're talking about is sort of transformative change. And I think to get that, you need to look outside yourself. So for our clients, that means literally taking them outside of their offices, taking them outside of their boardrooms, into the spaces of the people that they are trying to serve. So for the World Bank, we just did a project with the largest bank in Pakistan. And the project was to help the poorest women in Pakistan, women who are on a welfare program delivered by the government and are paid on average $12 a month, which is a significant sum for if you're one of the poorest women in Pakistan. And if you're a banker in Pakistan, you don't hang out with these women on a day-to-day basis. And yet the first chunk of our project was taking bankers, Pakistani bankers, out to the slums to sit and to listen to the women who they were designing products for. And that was an eye-opening experience. For you, I don't expect to be going to Pakistan, but I think what you do need to think about is how do you bring in these new perspectives, and how do you allow yourself to do and to be in new ways. The third piece I'll talk about is this notion of letting go. So I think a lot of the glamour about innovation is the new. It's about the kind of the shiny new thing that comes out at the end. And what's lost in that description is all of the old stuff that has to be shed to make room for that new. And this is really hard because usually the old stuff is not entirely broken. It's still semi-functional, and it's still working for us in some ways. And yet, to make room for new, you need to let go of some of what exists. Let go of some of your current identity, your current modes. So I was just in Australia, and one of the companies I met with is the Australian Postal Service. And unlike the United States Postal Service, they are actually really innovative. And the reason that they're innovative is because a few years ago, they recognized that they were in a dying business. And this is not super surprising. I think all of us could see why. But they realized that their main source of income, which is selling stamps and delivering letters, was on a dramatic decline. And they had the kind of fortitude to say, we need to rethink the business that we're in. We are no longer about the business of delivering letters. What we're about is the business of enabling communication. And that takes a huge amount of courage because for hundreds of years they've been about letter delivery. They have thousands of people out there with sacks delivering letters. But if you think about the kind of frame that it gives you to say delivering letters versus enabling communications, that's an enormous room for exploration. And they've acted upon it in wonderful ways. They have like a digital mailbox that offers a secure place for companies to communicate with people. They really doubled down on package delivery because as online shopping continues to escalate. Parcel delivery becomes a huge opportunity for them. So they're doing really cool stuff. And I think that one of the main ways that they've been successful in this is by being willing to say, we can put behind us that which needs to be shed. So I guess, I don't want to say just that innovation is difficult, hard work. I also want to say that it's worthwhile to do. I think I spend my life doing this because I think that it's what moves the world forward, and it is what enables change. Bless you. I think that people who have this way of doing work and people who are innovative are inherently optimistic, and I prefer to spend my time with those people. There are people who believe that the world is changeable, that it's still plastic and malleable, and that they can, as one of my colleagues says, dent the universe and make positive change for people at scale.
Do you think innovation is genetic? Do you think that you're born with it, or you think that you learned it through, you think that you were educated and you became good at being an innovator?
I think it's a learnable skill. I don't think everybody can do it. But I think there's skills and behaviors that are entirely learnable. Because if it was genetic, I don't think we'd have a whole company. I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is that the world plods along by being safe and by replicating that which is known, because that's established and predictable, and you can build a business model on it, or you can, structure your life around past behaviors. And this is about deliberately shedding some of what is known so that you open up space to make the unknown.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your
No, it's cool.
presentation.
That's cool. Any other questions? No. I'm going to go into then 4 tactics that I have, and then we'll do a little exercise. So my 4 tips for you to apply sort of innovative methods in your personal life. The first one is about solving the right problem. And this sounds really elementary, but I think that for us in framing a challenge that is appropriate for innovation, this can actually be quite hard. So oftentimes problem statements are too vague, or they're too rigid, or they're too specific, or they're too focused on the end result rather than the process of getting there. And they oftentimes presume what the answer will be, when in fact what you need to do at this stage of the game is create a frame for you to explore what that answer will become. So as an example, when we started working with P&G on the Swiffer, their question to us was, help us identify a new category in the floor cleaning solvent space that has potential of upwards of $50 million a year. Like, you can tell that comes from a boardroom at P&G. And when we went out and understood from people what it actually was to clean a floor, why that was important to them, why that was difficult, we learned that that problem didn't matter to them. It wasn't about categories or millions of dollars. It was about that a clean home is a representation of themselves, and that if we could provide them with a quicker, cleaner, easier way to clean their floor, that could connect with the values that they have. Now, that's quite different. That's a different set to start to design against than saying, how can I make a boatload of money? And so that's the kind of problem statement that I think, as you think about in your own world innovation, that I think you need to get to. Because it's very easy when you describe what you want to do for yourself to already constrain yourself and already put yourself into the boxes that you've already known about yourself.
So how would you have rephrased P&G's statement? Like, when you got the consumer ideal, and then you have P&G's, what their ideal is, how do you get back to them and merge the 2 ideas?
We don't merge them. We replace theirs with ours. This is why I get the freak out call probably. What the reason, and we tell clients that, you start out with a business problem, but you go out into the world to understand the problem in human terms. And so we come back with a very different version of what the question is. And it doesn't mean that they don't still need to make money, but it simply gives you a different avenue into where ideas will live. It gives you sort of a territory for exploration.
So what questions do you ask? Because I think it's so true about solving the right problem. Because sometimes you can get the adjacent problem, but not the heart of it.
Yeah.
What are some questions and how do you get to that?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
No, I think it's true. So who are you solving the problem for? Why is it a problem? Because if it's only a problem to your business, that doesn't count. Wow. What does success mean to you? What level of risk are you willing to tolerate? What kind of time horizon are you looking at? Because if you're looking to innovate in the next year, the level of change that we can expect is different than if you're saying, I'm looking for a 5-year out vision. So things like that. Things that essentially get to this question of how do you balance level of change and level of risk. And that gives us that kind of band that we can explore, if that makes sense. And I think the other thing that is important in there is that whatever we write as our challenge statement, we have to give it permission to change. So I had an English teacher that used to say, you can't, never introduce a paper you haven't met yet. Don't write the first paragraph first, write the first paragraph last. And I think this is a little bit of that you can create some parameters to start to initiate a project, but you have to allow your definition of what this answer will be to evolve as we go. The next tactic I have for you is to find new perspectives. So I have a lot of friends in my world right now who are working moms, young babies around the age of my daughter, working 50 hours a week and all that. And they've all said to me, I'm going to take the afternoon off work. I'm going to leave the baby with my husband for the week, Saturday, whatever. I'm going to go away and I'm going to think really hard. And I'm going to be so introspective that I will figure out what to do next. And after that day happens, they're like, oh, you know what, actually I went to the dry cleaner and, I listened to NPR and I thought a little bit, but nothing descended magically upon me. And I think that in the innovation process, we have to be mindful of that innovation is not about introspection, it's about collaboration, it's about learning from the outside world and then thinking very deeply about it so that we can figure out what do we take away from that. In that signal, what's the noise and what is meaningful? And also that it's not about the end, it's about the process. It's this process of gathering new views and new inputs as we go. The other thing that I think is important about new perspectives is the question of proximity. That it can be very, very difficult to have good judgment about that which you're very close to. And having a certain level of distance from that you want to change is important. So especially if we're talking about changing ourselves, I don't think any of us are our best judges of who we are and how we might need to change. I could tell my mom certainly, but yeah. The third piece I want to talk about is setting your lighthouse. This is a concept about balance.